to Two Babies in a Business, a podcast about business marketing, growth strategy, staff clients, babies marriage. I'm Christina. This is Peter. We are founders and leaders of CIPR Communications. And we're kind of tying a bow on the public relations series. And today, what I wanted to do, and Peter, you're so good at this, is tie digital marketing and public relations together. So kind of, I feel like, skirted around it a few times. We've talked about multi-channel marketing. We've talked about MarCom, marketing communications. But like, why do these things matter? And I'm going to throw this like really crazy question at you at the end about like follow and do not follow links. So prepare for that.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I mean, I guess there's a lot of complexity to this question. This is not this topic, because really, digital marketing then is a way to enhance often your public relations efforts, right? So there's a few different ways you can do that. Obviously, if you have a story published about you in the Calgary Herald, you could sponsor that on a social media post to make sure that it gets in front of as many eyes as possible so that more people see it. Or you can pay Postmedia to sponsor it on their channels, so that that's a paid channel as well. That's fundamentally a digital marketing channel, so that more eyes get on it on their channel, right? So, but then, beyond that, obviously, if you're doing sort of a good job of comprehensive public relations and digital marketing, you're probably, when you do your own media piece, i.e. putting your press release on your website, you're probably, doing all of the things you need to be doing from a from an SEO perspective, to optimize that post, to make sure that it becomes visible. I actually like an interesting kind of piece to this too, is that I actually see putting press releases over a wire as a great way to get short-term SEO juice or SEO benefits for your company, by basically, so when you put something over a wire, often it will come up on a Google search, especially if your company isn't that visible on Google and you don't have a big Google presence. People often find your wire distributions when they search your company on Google. So that's actually, like, to me, a cheating way of doing SEO. I mean, it's not a cheap way, because press releases and wires are expensive, but it's a fast way to make sure that your brand becomes visible on organic search through these press releases. So that's sort of a little cheat that I like to do with clients. But then in addition to that, obviously, is actually like you're developing content, and you need to be optimizing that content so that it does organically show up. You're making sure your titles have the right keywords in them, right? You're sort of optimizing, and you're putting in internal links, like you're putting links to different things within your press release, so that there's an internal link building component as well, right? So certainly, yeah, there's done well, then you can really get digital marketing juice from your PR efforts, I think, is the way to kind of think about this one.
It's true. It's interesting. And I go back to the episode a few ago about, marketing communications and this full range. And this is where I'm a broken record. It's like the goals that you have set in front of yourself for your public relations should be the same goals as your digital marketing, right? So it may look different, right? So if your goal around brand building or brand awareness is one that's really important for your company, then both the communications or the public relations and the marketing need to understand that. And there are tactics to do with marketing to help you achieve that goal. And there are tactics to do with public relations. And then, similarly, if the goal is that more extreme one we talked about in terms of getting coverage or being on TV or becoming famous or speaking to something, there are marketing tactics that have to do with that. Paid appearances on podcasts, maybe your own YouTube channel, maybe whatever, but there are also public relations tasks that have to do with that. So, the two, I don't think, can live separately.
No. Well, and there's things you need to be doing as well. So things like if your goal of your public relations activity is to sell, then you need to also make sure you're putting tracking codes, and you need to make sure you have calls to actions on your website in the right place, and your whatever link you're sending people to is a link that's a, you know, to a landing page that's, you know, designed to help create sales for you, right? So that's where the intersection happens, because your press release isn't going to make a sale, but if your press release gets somebody to your website, you know, what page are you sending them to, and is that optimized to make sales for conversion, right?
Right.
So that's really where the nuts and bolts come in. And it is a really, you know, this is a very nuts and bolts kind of conversation, because this is like a really technical, all right, here's our goals, here's what we're doing, here's how technically we're set up and we're doing things to make sure we fully, you know, get those goals realized through the things we do on our digital marketing efforts, because digital marketing is much more of a technical kind of thing, if you will.
It's true. I think that some people, um, I would say consultants primarily, or even folks that are in marketing and communications, and we've seen this before, keep these things very separated. No, my public relations can't help my marketing, and my marketing, and they're two different things. Again, I think we obviously have a different opinion of that. But one question I feel like people ask you, and I feel like is very nuts and bolts and nitty gritty, is this whole notion of like follow links and do not follow.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, I think what has caused digital marketers to not pursue public relations in the past as something that could help a digital marketing program. But you have, I think, some big opinions there.
Yeah, so we're going to get into some pretty technical stuff here, so just sort of hang on. But so I mean, really, when it comes to SEO and SEO juice, if you will, search engine optimization, the main thing you want to be doing is building high quality links. So, and basically, just to sort of scale it back a little bit, when you do search engine optimization, you know, you need to do certain things on your website to make sure it's technically optimized, to be able to like tell search engines what's on your website, make sure it's fast, all these technical on-site things. Second thing you do is you build content, good content that people would actually want to read and consume and share. And then when you have good content, that allows you to build links, because you link. So like, a different website will will create a link to your content because it's interesting to their readers. That's the way to think about it. And links are really like a popularity contest. So like really good content gets a lot of really good links, because it's really good content and it's stuff people want to consume and it's popular and whatever. Now there's two types of links. There's follow links and no follow links. And there's a lot of literature online about like only follow links create SEO juice, so search engine optimization value, if you will. And do not follow links, you know, aren't that valuable. And so the reason I'm explaining all this is because when you put a press release over a wire service, mostly what you generate is no follow links. So I've heard arguments, and I've, you know, talked to people that are like, oh well, so putting press releases over a wire doesn't create SEO value, and I completely fundamentally disagree with that statement. And I have proven through some of our clients who've never done digital marketing ever in their lives, who do nothing but put press releases over wires and have 100% PR focused. They have a high domain authority, which is basically when you have a lot of links on your website, that creates a domain authority. So that sort of says your website, you have this much authority on this topic or on whatever you do because you put out this content and you create these links. That's what creates your authority. We have several clients that do nothing but PR, but have great domain authority,
Right.
and they're not necessarily getting a lot of do follow links, although they do get some. So yes, the press release creates a lot of no follow links. If you do a lot of them, my argument is that eventually does lead to do follow links because you are becoming an authority on a topic publicly on search engines. But I also will argue that those no follow links actually create SEO juice for you. So that was sorry for the very, very technical thing explanation here. But the whole point is that if you do PR consistently over time, you will help your organization be found better, more organically. If you add a dedicated SEO strategy to your PR strategy, that's when some real magic can happen, and you're going to become the authority online on whatever topic it is. And fundamentally, that's your job, right? Every brand's job, in my opinion. Hey, you're really good at what you do. You need to basically let everybody know, and you need to become the online authority in the topic of what you do. And when you are that, and when you do that, that's what leads to people coming to you and choosing your business over others, because you've proven yourself as an expert. You know what you're talking about, and you're findable because you've done all the things right. So that's sort of how it all comes together in my view. And the most successful companies in the world, yeah, I mean, look at them. They do PR, they do digital marketing, they're doing ads, they're doing SEO, they're doing all of the above, right? And there's a reason they're the most successful companies in the world. And I'm going to finish this little small rant on, I don't know, a lot of companies these days think that, they look at all these companies and how successful they are, and then, think that they don't need to spend money on marketing. And it's like, there's this unicorn law of marketing. I saw this slide once. It was amazing. And it was like, 3% of companies in the world spend like 97% of like the money on digital ads. And then like 97% of the companies in the world, like collectively spend the other 3%.
Interesting.
It like mind boggling. And guess what? Those 3% of companies are the 3% largest companies in the world,
right,
for a reason. Right.
No, it's interesting. I love that piece. And I think my other tie to digital marketing is the content play. And I think a press release or public relations in general, because there's a lot of other things as we've discussed, is like another communications play. So even if you don't put that press release across a wire, it still can live on your website. It still can provide, to your term, SEO juice if you're using the right keywords. And sometimes you've written for blog, standard SEO program, you're thinking, okay, what's the next blog to write? Or am I doing more dynamic SEO, or I have a larger content piece and now I need a bunch of complementary content to come alongside that. Sometimes a press release could be a really interesting piece of content to help you further that program along. So remember, when we were really heavily targeting the cannabis space and doing a lot of SEO around that, we came up with a series of press releases for that business. So things we offered into that space, things that we knew would not get media, but our goal of that press release was about generating website traffic.
Right.
So, again, we managed our internal expectations around, well, no, we're not going to be doing media interviews about this, but that's not the goal. And so those things didn't go across a wire, or not all of them did, but they became great content for a website. So that would be my other play, and where I often will push people. And I think, Brad often, from a public relations strategic approach, has content plays like, maybe it's like a LinkedIn Pulse post that's an open letter from a CEO to a public, or a press release, or this or that or the other thing, but they become interesting ways to think about content that you've maybe written before, that you've maybe presented in different ways, and now you have a new format that might catch someone else's attention.
Yeah, I like that. And I like that, sort of, I guess, let's wrap it up with this idea or thought, but like really fundamentally, we talked a few episodes ago about like marketing communications. And really, if you break it down, that really is actually content marketing, which is really like using content in multiple formats to tell your story and to do your marketing, right? And so like, back to what you're saying, it's like, yeah, some people might want to read a blog about the 7 ways to do X, Y, and Z. But some people maybe prefer to read that content in a press release format. X company just did this, and here's the 5 things or whatever, right? So different formats, and some people might want to watch it on a YouTube video, and some people might, right? So like, think of, when we write a digital marketing strategy for a client, it's like, who are your customers? How do those customers consume content? Therefore, we need to create content in the ways your customers consume content. And so like, a press release is one way that some of your, I use the word customers, but I mean like your stakeholders consume content. And that is a very valid and valuable way for you to deliver content. But it's only one way, right? And so to your point is like, your content can live in 5 different formats, but all kind of be the same thing, but be speaking to 5 different audiences, right? And then digital marketing is the way to get as much reach for that content as possible. So, I mean, that's really, if you break down fundamentally, I think our approach to the world when it comes to marketing communications, it's really kind of that multi-channel content marketing, for lack of better terms.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's that's public relations. So we've gone over what it is, we've debunked that, we've walked you through strategy, we've talked about earned, paid, and owned. We've made you ask questions around setting expectations, around is it really news? We've shared kind of different tactics and tools that aren't necessarily the standard media relations. Talked about training, talked to a few great journalists. Hopefully we'll line up and talk to a few more too. But yeah, I mean, this has been a really, I think, interesting conversation with you. So I'm excited
Yeah.
that, we spent a good, I don't know, 12 episodes chatting.
Yeah. Well, my final thought on this is like, it's kind of really made me think about us as a business and how we're positioning ourselves, and really kind of, yeah, we're going to be doing some brainstorming sessions as a team, I think, at some point based on some of what we've talked about. So there you go.
Well, there you go. So there's your invitation, everyone who's listening, to give your ideas to Peter around what you've learned with the public relation piece. I think one for me is really, what do you think about public relations? How does it tie to digital marketing? Are you using terms like marketing communications, Marcom? Are you still separating things? I think, we know the world's changing. We know some people have adopted and jumped on the bandwagon, but how are you talking about yourselves? We want to know. So leave us a comment on this post on Facebook, Instagram. Slide into our DMs if you want to too, and make sure you follow the podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Thank you.
Bye.